It's my pleasure to introduce Wynette Sills, a farmer and a farm family just outside of Sacramento. She was telling me they actually at Pleasant Grove Farms farm in a floodplain, and so they're not worried about housing encroachment directly. But in fact, it of course gives us interesting and challenging soil types at times in those places. And she's going to give us some of the principles and some of the beginning efforts of how we begin to build soil through regenerative agriculture. Please join me in welcoming Wynette Sills.
Well, good afternoon. It's a joy to be with you. My name is Wynette Sills. My husband and I farm in Pleasant Grove. It's about an hour and a half south of here, not far from the state capitol. We've been certified organic since the mid-1980s, and yet about 2 years ago, due to marketing inquiries, we also went through the extra effort to be certified regenerative. And so we're certified by AGW, A Greener World, and ROC. And so what I'd like to share with you today is a little bit about our regenerative program. And I won't be talking about soil health and soil microbiology and nutrient cycling and cover crops. Those were all covered really well by earlier speakers today. But what I'd like to talk about are some of the extra things that we've done since becoming certified regenerative. Factors that we consider about what programs we're going to implement on our farm is, first of all, is it affordable? Now, I don't think I'm the only one in the room for whom last year's yields were less than expected, for whom market prices, even with the organic premium, are lower this year than they were last year, and whose input costs have skyrocketed. And so when we're looking at programs to implement on our farm, they have to be, first of all, affordable. There's not much profit margin left on our farm. Secondly, it has to be impactful. Life is too short, and we've got too many other things to do than to just check boxes on an application somewhere for the sake of filling out paperwork. It really has to mean something to us. Thirdly, effective. If it doesn't work, we're going to move on to other projects and other programs. Fourth, I put easy-ish in quotation marks because it takes work, but it's something that I enjoy doing, and I'm looking for things that are implementable, impactful, and don't take a lot of paperwork, because I'm drowning in paperwork, and I'd rather hoe weeds all day in 100-degree temperature than do paperwork behind my desk. And so I'm looking for easy-ish programs. And lastly, fun, enjoyable, and satisfying. When I told my husband that I was going to use the word fun in a presentation, it was almost like he had never heard the word before, because for most farmers, that is not something they immediately think of. But job satisfaction is really important. Regenerative, sustainable farmers need fun, enjoyable, satisfying programs on the farm. I use this as a starting slide because this kind of shows you the context. Here I am with a shovel or a hoe or a rake, trying to do something regenerative when most of our employees, and we farm about a little over 3,000 acres. We've got about 20 employees. Most of the farm energy, you can see the dust flying up there, is going to get those crops planted, keep the business going. And so regenerative and all my little specialty projects have to fit under that umbrella of keeping the farm business going. Here's some of the projects that we've implemented. Like I said, we've only been certified regenerative for a couple of years, so some of them are still kind of in their beginning stages. But seed for bees, egg rescue, and ducklings return, delayed grain harvest, bid for birds, bird returns, and the Merlin app, sheep goat grazing, milkweed planting for monarch butterflies, repairing habitat restoration with native plants, and ag hire for our employees. I start off with seed for bees because it was our first project, and it's really easy and fun, actually. And why are we doing it? You heard earlier about the importance of pollinators and the declining population of honeybees, bumblebees, native bees. You pick up any farm magazine and it's talking about hive decline and the loss of pollinators. And so flowering plants, kind of most everyone knows this, improves pollinator habitat and activity. Seed for Bees offers free, I like that word, free cover crop seed designed to bloom at critical parts of the year when natural forage is scarce and when pollinators need it most. It's an easy, simple application online at projectapsm.org. The application's open April 1st, so the timing is perfect. First-year growers qualify for up to $2,500 in free cover crop seed. Farms must be located in California and plant at least 4 acres of cover crop. Now, that doesn't mean you need a field dedicated to cover cropping. They've allowed us to spread those acres across like levees, roadside road pads, ditch banks, anywhere that we can create a habitat for pollinators. And good news here on the bottom, there's no additional paperwork needed, just send them some pretty pictures of wildflowers growing on your farm. So with that in mind, we started having Friday morning on the farm on our location there in Pleasant Grove, and that's where we invite the general public, school kids, news reporters, lunch service people in the local school districts, bird watchers, photographers, butterfly experts, anyone who wants to come. We open up the farm from about 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Fridays throughout the spring and summer, and of course, seeing all the wildflowers was a big hit. Within Seed for Bees, there's about 5 different seed mixes that you can choose from. They've got like nitrogen fixing cover crops. They've got brassicas. For us, we already have all of those things already implemented on our farm, so we chose the wildflower seeds, and you can kind of get a sense of what's available, and they have great planting directions and the dates and everything, so they make it pretty simple for you. I just throw this in as, happiness is seeing a bee on the flower you actually planted. And so earlier, I think it was Brian mentioned lacy leaf phacelia. It's been really easy to grow and very impactful. Yarrow, also very successful and easy to do. Our next project that we work on is duck egg rescue. So this picture here is just kind of what happens on our farm, typically in April with the rainy season. That could be anywhere from mid-April to early May. We'll be chopping and disking our cover crops in. And as you can imagine, as you're sending this equipment across the field, the mallard hens, they're very attached to their nests. At the very last minute, they're going to fly up. And it's really good for our employees. They're all trained. They've got their egg cartons. They stop whatever implement they're using and get out and collect those eggs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that process. For those of you who may not be familiar, vetch as a cover crop has been foundational since the mid-'80s for us to grow organic. Got rice, popcorn, yellow corn, beans, wheat, triticale, wheat, rye, mostly cereals and beans are what we're growing, but vetch has really been instrumental in providing our nitrogen. It's a legume, fixes nitrogen, but it's also a popular nesting site for our ducks. And so rather than take these implements across the field and destroying those duck nesting sites, we instruct our employees to stop their implements and collect those eggs. Okay, and then what do you do with them? That's another responsibility. Our eggs are collected in cartons and delivered to a permitted hatchery. There's several to choose from, but the one we send our eggs to is Robbie with his contact information there. Additional duck egg hatcheries are at that website through the calwaterfowl.org organization. So it's a picture of mallard duck eggs in our cover crop. Last year we rescued 241 mallard duck eggs from our fields, including 49 eggs on one day. We were getting so many eggs, I would have to drive from Pleasant Grove to Marysville, District 10, and that's a hour round trip. And that Robbie started feeling some empathy for us, so he loaned us an incubator for us to use, and of course the eggs started hatching. But the good news is that we don't have to take on the responsibility of then raising those ducks, those ducklings. Robbie and the permitted hatcheries will collect the eggs and the newly hatched ducklings and take them back, and they'll feed them, care for them, raise them, and then when the ducklings are about 5 weeks old, just when they're getting their flight feathers, we'll bring a few dozen back and have a big community, school children come and welcome them back home. And we're already seeing the second generation of these returned, rescued mallard ducks coming back onto our farm. So that's been another easy to do, doesn't cost you anything, no paperwork, and a high return on job satisfaction. Makes you feel good. It makes our employees feel good rather than, driving right over those nests when you see the hen fly up, just to collect them and save those ducks. But collecting eggs doesn't just end with the spring planting season. Duck eggs are rescued into the early summer, and we participate in a program called Delayed Cereal Grain Harvest through, again, calwaterfowl.org. And we've discovered that, well, it's not just us, studies show that the nesting ducks, they'll actually prefer the winter grains even over their natural upland habitat. And so you'll find a lot of duck eggs in these conditions. In this program, the requirements are that you have to delay your harvest until at least July 15th. So you've got some added risk there as far as fire danger, fire exposure, might even shatter some of your grains. For us, this was cereal rye, and so it wasn't really much of a sacrifice on the marketing end. We were willing to invest in the ducks, and we rescued our most eggs in June. The good news is that this program will pay farmers $50 to $75 an acre to participate, and the amount is variable depending on how much access you allow the wildlife biologist to your field. So if they're just able to look from a distance, you get $50 an acre. If they're able to bring in their quads and ropes and chains and document the nesting birds and that to that level, then you get up to $75 an acre. So there's the contact information if you're interested in participating in that. Timing is good. Applications close March 31st. Okay, now we're moving into something that's a little more complicated. Birdreturns.org and Bid for Birds. Julia, you're here somewhere. Here's Julia. So if anyone's interested, make sure that you contact Julia. And I should have mentioned Seed for Bees. Stetson is here somewhere, or she was here earlier. Anyway, she left a whole bunch of cover crop wildflower seeds for me at my table back there, so you're welcome to take some home with you. Moving on to bird returns and Bid for Birds. These are conservation programs that, since the Sacramento Valley has been a historic stopover for migratory birds, we've lost 95% of that habitat due to, we've got rivers and levees and urbanization, and so with all that habitat loss, these conservation organizations provide programs to incentivize farmers to provide habitat for these migratory birds. And they will compensate farmers if they maintain a shallow 2 to 4 inch deep flood for 3 to 5 weeks. The application for bird returns closes April 4th. And so that's coming right up. And Julia is here. She can answer any questions that you might have with her applications. And flyers. Very good. Bid for Birds is a similar program, and their deadline is not until June 10th. It's a reverse auction bidding process. You think of an auction usually goes to the highest bidder. Well, this will actually go to the lowest bidder. And as a farmer, what you have to do is pencil out what will be your added costs for implementing this shallow flood for 2 to 4 inches deep for 3 to 5 weeks, and you get to kind of choose what time frame you want within their parameters, and you estimate how much it's going to cost you to chop the stubble or remove any or disc in any crop residue or any added costs you might have due to labor, electricity, water costs, and you submit your bid, and if you're one of the lower bids and you've got your timing and your location as a priority amongst their program criteria, then you would be offered a contract. And we put in a bid for $50 an acre on over 100 acres, and it was accepted. So, that just kind of gives you a ballpark. Now, you see these screenshots. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Merlin app. How many, just out of curiosity, how many of you know what the Merlin app is? Okay, so half the room. Merlin app is right on your cell phone, your smartphone. It's a free app that all you have to do when you see birds, when you hear birds, just go to your app, turn it on, and it will record the sound of the birds, and then we'll tell you exactly the species that's located there. So this is an example of a screenshot right off of my phone. It gives you the date, the time, gives you a recording of what they heard. And I thought there would be some sound here. Well, anyway, it was supposed to be some sound of some sandhill cranes going over our farm, so that's okay. You can see the Merlin app will tell you all the bird species. These bird programs are especially interested in shorebirds and their migratory pattern. These birds are flying from like Alaska, Russia, Canada, all the way to South America, so they're completing a migratory path of several thousand miles and choose our Sacramento Valley as a stopover location. The allaboutbirds.org is a great place. When these identifications are given to you, a red dot, let's see if I can, where it says pectoral sandpiper, a red dot means that it's very rare to find that bird in our location at that time of year, and then like the long-billed curlew, the half circle, more of a gold-orange color, that means that it's uncommon to find that bird in our area. So basically it's, add water and they will come. It was astoundingly successful, easy to do, and you get paid to participate. Now, we were concerned about what adding this water in the fall would do to our nutrient cycling, our microbial activity, our weed population, whether it would, sprout more weed seed, or maybe it would saturate the soil profile such that it would be a delay getting into the field at the following spring. But 2 years into the program, it's still kind of early, and we've had pretty good weather, cooperative weather, but we found it to be very positive, very satisfying, and easy to implement, and you get a little bit of compensation. Okay, now I know tomorrow's all about grazing, and for those of you who have livestock, you might not understand what it's like to be a rice farmer with the hope of someday incorporating livestock into our farming system. We just don't I was in 4-H and FFA growing up, and we had a flock of sheep, but that's nothing like having a couple of thousand that you would need on a farm of our size. But we're motivated because my husband gave me these figures. Our compost back in the mid-'80s went from $12 a ton. That's when we used to get it from like Foster Farm, other sources where it was kind of a waste product for them, and pretty cheap for us to haul and spread on our farm, to now it's over $80 a ton and getting increasingly short supply. And we use, prior to a crop like corn, we're using 5 to 6 tons per acre. So you can see, this is not sustainable. We've got to do something else. And so we're looking at incorporating sheep and goats onto our farming system. But, who's going to be there in lambing season? Who's going to do the vaccinations? Who's going to coordinate the shearing, the fencing, the transportation, all those things? It's a big undertaking if you're not familiar with that as a part of your life. And so the solution is to partner with your local shepherd. We've found a really outstanding young man. He follows all the regenerative podcasts, and it's a win-win situation, much like Scott mentioned earlier. No money is exchanged. They get free food and we get free vegetation management. This just shows you kind of the before and after of having the sheep on our farm. Okay, the next project we do, and I'm going through these pretty fast. How are we doing for time, Zion? Okay. We try to identify what are some problems that our community our state faces and what can we do to address them as far as a positive solution. And it was brought to our attention that the monarch butterfly populations have declined by over 90% since the 1990s. I mean, that's within the lifespan of most everyone in this room. The Fish and Wildlife Service has proposed to list the monarch butterfly as a threatened species under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. This is a graph that actually shows the numbers of decline provided by the Xerces Society. Over 1 million monarch butterflies in 1997, and these are the western monarchs, and I'll show a map in the next slide. But you can see from over 1 million down to last year that counts for 9,000. And so to me that's a concern that maybe our farm could be a part of the solution, and we try to move past our farm just being a substrate by which we're producing a product and more of a positive contributor to the overall ecosystem and environment. So whether you have already realized this or not, but monarch caterpillars must have milkweed to feed on in order to survive, and that's based on a chemical that the milkweed provides, cardinalides. And more information about that at the Xerces organization. So we planted over 100 milkweed plants last year. And how did we get these plants? Well, we got them through these organizations. The Monarch Joint Venture Organization, Monarch Watch, and the Xerces organizations provided us with free plants. And we just had the faith that if we gave it a try, it might work. And I'll give you some results in a minute. But just to explain a little bit about the monarch migration pattern, these are the Rocky Mountains on the right-hand side. Those are the monarchs that make the 3,000-mile trip down into Mexico, to overwinter. But we're in the western part of the United States, and the monarchs that are here in the Sacramento Valley, they're going to spend their winter along our coast, like in Santa Cruz and San Luis Obispo. And so the red arrows show their winter migration, and the spring arrows show the red arrows show their fall migration to the coast, and then the green arrows show what they're experiencing right about this time of year. All right, they came to us in a box, these donated milkweed plants. Our first milkweed plants arrived May 29th. And if you remember right, June was a very hot month to get these small transplants established out in our fields. But just gives you an example. This is a tailwater return ditch. All of our farm fields that are in this area of our farm have a drainage system that come into this tailwater return ditch, and then it can be recycled and reused. And so knowing that water is an important resource to establish a hedgerow or native plants, we are capitalizing on that existing tailwater return ditch and transforming it over the last year into a riparian habitat restoration. Our two main challenges were weed control and water. For weeds, we tried a lot of things. Wynette was out there hoeing, but we had Johnson grass and yellow star thistle and all kinds of, invasive weeds along here. And so every time I would hoe one Johnson grass, I was prompting probably 5 others to grow in, 48 hours later. And so we've decided that our best approach is to put down our, recycled cardboard and then bring in wood chips. And if you are looking for wood chips, we're using this program called getchipdrop.com, where the system matches people who want free wood chips, like us, with arborists and tree companies in your community who are trying to get rid of it as a byproduct of their business. So it's another win-win partnership. Oh, and we're also considering this year using wool, because the sheep that are brought onto our property are Katahdins and I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, their wool isn't the highest quality, and so we're thinking of using wool as a mulch. So we got those plants May 31st, 2 months after planting. You plant them on a hope that something's going to show up. On August 4th of last year, that should be 24, sorry about that, we saw our very first monarch, and we've renamed this tailwater return ditch to Willow Pond because that's a predominant natural tree that's growing there. So we saw our very first monarch flying through as adults at Willow Pond. And you wonder, like, in this huge Sacramento Valley, how did they find these brand new milkweed plants that we had planted in our little postage stamp size, of what we're responsible for here on this big earth? How did they find us? It's still a mystery. But by August 17th, the milkweed was all flowering. We had, with every adult that flies through, every adult female, she lays 100, over hundreds of eggs. And so we had lots of caterpillars. You can, just in context, almond harvest is happening in the field across the road. Our popcorn is tasseling and our milkweed is in full bloom here. Our very first caterpillar was seen August 18th. And then the caterpillar turns into a chrysalis about a week later. And then just before the chrysalis is about ready to eclose into an adult, it turns to a dark color, and the rice is starting to mature, and then the milkweed is going to seed. I don't know if that's going to show. That was a video showing the life cycle of the monarch butterfly, but that's okay. We can move on. Oh, it is going to play. Sorry, it's going to take a minute. I think do we have time to show it? It's kind of incredible if you haven't seen it. Okay, we'll move on. Just need to get back to slides. So that takes about a month. In real time, it takes about a month for it to go from adult to adult, the whole life cycle. So I explained to you how we have this half-mile long tailwater return ditch that we're transforming into a riparian habitat and renaming it as Willow Pond. We partnered with an organization called Xerxes Society, and they provided us with what they call hedgerow kits, and there are 90 plants in a kit, and we were awarded 2 of them. Their application deadline is April 4th, and there's their website. This is just an example of the information they give you. They give you the scientific name, the common name, how many plants they give you, their bloom time. So again, you want to extend the bloom time across the full season. The water needs. So, this is a sloping ditch. We planted those that have a high water need closer to the water source, and those that have, logically the lower water need up higher on the bank of this ditch that's now turned into a willow pond. And it even describes to you, the organization provides you with what beneficial pollinators are associated with each of the plants. Keystone plants are native plants that are essential for many wildlife species to complete their cycles. So, now on the farm we have a half mile on both sides, everything from sycamores and cottonwoods to ceanothus, and it's just beautiful. Okay, it's almost to the end of my slides. This is a little joke I put up here. I hope I don't offend anyone. But, we all go into this with wonderful, regenerative, natural, organic, it's wonderful. In reality, this is not a golf course. The nature is a little messy and chaotic and things. This picture down on the lower left, I was out late in the evening one summer day, and I heard like a herd of horses approaching me, like all this noise, snorting, and water moving around. And the tules were moving, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm here all by myself. What is coming towards me? But it was a family of river otters that have found our tailwater return ditch, now Willow Pond, and have made it a home. And so, those are success stories that I feel like, wow, we're really doing something when river otters think that, this is a nice place to live. Something that's not so nice, beaver damage to our willow trees. And so the beavers have not only, created a dam, of course, but they've also created a den that's, right alongside the Willow Pond there. And I just wonder, this is going into our second year, will they ever be satisfied after they build a dam and after they build a den, or will they keep eating or cutting down our willow trees, and will we have to change the name from Willow Pond to Beaver Pond, and we'll have to come back to that next year. But the complexity of an ecosystem, the great horned owls and hawks that we have that we nurture and we think are great, they seem to be attacking our barn owls, so that's not a good thing. Our praying mantises, which are thought to be a beneficial insect, they're eating our monarch caterpillars. So the complexity of a regenerative system, we just have to deal with whatever happens and be happy with we're making an effort there. Okay, the last slide I have is something that's very, very important. And when you start applying for regenerative certification and even CCUF, they take into consideration how well you're treating your employees. And for us, as probably most farmers, employees are our most valuable resource. And they're considered part of our extended family, and their career advancement is part of being certified regenerative. And so a program that we've discovered, it's their first year in having this, it's called Ag Hire, and I know Ben and Denise Carter were also participating in it. It's hosted by the Center for Land-Based Learning in Woodland, and that's their website. Ag Hire takes, it's an innovative training program for primary Spanish-speaking employees to improve their language skills, strengthen their computer competency, develop leadership capabilities, and it involves 87 hours of instruction. We had to pay a $600 registration fee, and we also paid for the hours that our employee was involved with the coursework. 21 students graduated in this first ever program just last weekend, and yet this program will reimburse us for that registration cost and for the salary that we provided for our employee to attend the coursework. So we think it's a really worthwhile investment and would encourage people to look at that opportunity for a class of 2025. Okay, this is my last slide. This is, just a farm event we had for all of our employees and their spouses and their children and grandparents. And in addition to all of our partnering conversation organizations that I mentioned earlier, we want to thank them, but also we're very grateful for all of our employees. And just the ending thought, a society grows great when old men, and in my case, old women, plant trees in whose shade they will never sit under. And that's attributed to a Greek proverb. I don't know if that's really true or not, but I like the message. And so I end this talk, and probably over time, but I just, ask each of us, what is your legacy? I'm 62 years old, and projects like this just give me hope and job satisfaction and think that I'm leaving something better behind. So I'll take questions back at my table, and I've got some free seeds for you. And oh, Zion, you made that. Okay, I don't know, I wouldn't know how to do this, but Zion made this.
If you scan the QR code with your phone, it'll take you. Wynette made a great Google Doc that has all the information you kind of went over and some links as well as some phone numbers.